where they replaced the Helen of Troy with a black woman. If you replace Kunta Kinte with Kill Tony, I'm pretty sure we'd never hear the end of it, actually. Whether you like to admit it or not, we're at war. We are at war right now. We're at war for the minds of the youth, of your children, of your children's children. There is a war going on in the education system, in your communities, in your households. Everywhere you look, there's an ideological shift that people are fighting for, whether it's left or right, radical or non-radical, and it's happening. And it's changing how your kids see the world. It's changing their perspectives into a way that can dismantle and destroy the very freedoms that give them the permission to criticize it. What do I mean? Well, I don't have to explain it. I'm going to let Catherine here explain it to you. This is a very important video, and I suggest you share this with your friends, especially your heavy left-leaning ones. But it may be harder to share with them, but they need to hear it nonetheless. Let's get started.
The culture shift comes from what children learn at school and online. Ask any young person what history they learned at school, and they'll tell you Hitler. Ask them what else? Slavery. Ask them what else? American civil rights. In fact, what little they know of history will be all about black and brown people fighting for equality against the white man. Women fighting men for the vote. Gay and trans people fighting for various rights. Our young people have been taught that history is simply one long story about various groups struggling under the oppressive dead white man. Out with Dickens, Shakespeare, Kipling, and Wordsworth. We must decolonize. History is taught through an oppressor lens. The triangular slave trade, white men held the power. What about Britain ending the slave trade? More than a quick mention, if at all?
Think about what she just said there. How the slave trade was ended by white men. Not just in Britain, but in the United States as well, right? When you think about the Civil War here in the United States, who fought the Civil War? Who fought against slavery? Majority was white men. There's this idea that suddenly all white people were for slavery back then. No, that's not at all how this works. Other facts get ignored all the time. Like, who sold the slaves into slavery? It wasn't white people. It was their own people. And then even more so, the darkness that gets overlooked today. You know, there's more slaves today than there ever was. In modern times, right now, there's more slaves today. And guess where? And by whom? In Africa and in the Middle East and in Asia, and they're not enslaved by white people. But you don't hear anybody talking about that. But none of that matters because this radical left-wing ideology wants you to play the victim. They want you to see white people or the government as the oppressor, despite the fact that we live in a nation where you can lift yourself up and make anything of yourself. They want you to believe you're oppressed. Don't believe it.
No. What of the Arab slave trade that lasted 3 times as long as the triangular slave trade? No. Okay, so GCSE history in Britain is often taught as migration through time. So the idea that Britain has always been a land of immigrants is embedded in our children's heads. Most schools would prefer to concentrate learning about the tiny number of black people who existed in Tudor England over a thorough analysis of England's break from Rome. Medieval history becomes her story and is told through the eyes of Eleanor of Aquitaine, because after all, she was a woman.
Let's touch on that for a minute. She's referencing how modern historians want to exaggerate the impact of minority groups in Great Britain or in quote-unquote white nations, right? It's often the argument that, oh, they built the nation. They were here first. They were the Vikings. I mean, I hear that's an argument now, which is absurd, by the way. My question becomes, why are people so bent on erasing white history? Why? White culture, European culture, American culture, white American culture. You're trying to replace people in their own culture when you have your own culture that you could celebrate. A good example of this, for instance, is The Odyssey. Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, where they replaced the Helen of Troy with a black woman. We know that's not historically accurate at all. Whether you consider it mythology or not, we know that's not accurate. But why would you do that? Because if it was done the other way around, there'd be an uproar. If you replace Kunta Kinte with Kill Tony, I'm pretty sure we'd never hear the end of it, actually. So my whole argument against what's happening here is instead of trying to impregnate other people's cultures and replace them with yours and with you, maybe tell stories from your culture, from your homeland, your own history. I'm sure there's a vibrant history there from your own homelands, from your own history. Heroes and villains. your own mythologies and all that stuff. But you're so bent on replacing white people in their own culture, and it's obvious. Here's a good rule of thumb. If the shoe was on the other foot and it would piss you off, then maybe it's wrong either way. So maybe you should be doing the thing that you would get mad about. Just a thought, just a thought.
Not to mention weeks on King Mansa Musa of Mali because he was a black Muslim. His bearing on British institutions, laws, and faith is non-existent. And the fact that he is said to have been the richest man in history, thanks in part to his massive slave-owning society, is a detail somehow that teachers rarely ever teach.
See, a detail that doesn't fit their narrative. Mansa Musa, the richest black man ever, according to history, right? But what they fail to acknowledge is that the man built his entire fortune on the backs of slaves. Growing up, I never heard about that part. Never heard about it. Nope. But that's the truth. Crazy, isn't it?
But it isn't just our schools. It's our general culture, too. Take your kids to a museum or an art gallery in any Western country, and you'll find the same narrative. As an example, when learning about aviation in London's Science Museum and the extraordinary feat that is man making massive machines move in the sky, a write-up on the wall explains that women and black people were historically barred from aviation schools and the military. Similarly, James Watt, the man who invented the steam engine and is considered the founder of the Industrial Revolution, has a write-up on the wall explaining that his early career involved slave trafficking with a bonus analysis of the whole of Britain's complicity in the slave trade. They flatten the entire human story and all of its complexities into the narrative of oppressor and oppressed.
And that's the problem right there. They treat history like it's black and white. When history is far more complex, reality is far more complex. People are far more complex. They try to tell history in this flat sense, like it's black and white. To frame these people who have contributed so much to society in this bad light just because of what was commonplace back then. And here's another thing people don't seem to remember or mention is that a lot of these things were worldwide. Slavery was a worldwide thing once upon a time. This was commonplace. Not to say that it wasn't bad, but it is to say that it once upon a time was the norm of the world. And most of the time it wasn't race-based. The truth is, there's no such thing as a good person. We're all wicked, every single one of us. We have our good moments and we have our bad moments. But these people who are trying to retell history are acting like they're saints and that our ancestors are these evil villains that we need to forget and cast aside. Look, I'm just an average citizen, okay? I'm just an average citizen. I'm a Christian. I care about my country. I care about people. I love Jesus. And I'm just paying attention, man. All right? And I think there's a lot of people out there that are not paying attention. Okay. The reason why I specify that I'm an average citizen is because the average citizen is who decides the future. Okay. There's more average citizens that are voting in these elections than not. Okay. So the average citizen is very important despite what people will try to tell you. You have to know what you don't know, and you have to acknowledge truth despite whether or not it hurts your feelings. These are a lot of hard questions that I like to pose in these videos. There's a lot of things I like to bring to the attention that I don't think people are paying attention to. So if you like this video and you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, comment below, continue the conversation. I'm Noel. This is God in Politics, and Christ is King. I love you guys. I'm out.